Hi, my name is Emily Ecton, and I'm the author of the book, The Great Vandal Scandal. This is the third book in the Great Pet Heist series, and it's about a group of pets that solve crimes and have adventures in their high-rise apartment building. So what I thought I would do today is read to you a little bit of the first chapter of this book so you can get an idea of what it's like and if it's something that you'd be interested in. Just to give you a little bit of sense about the series and what's happened before this. The first book, The Great Pet Heist, is about what happens when Mrs. Food, who's the owner of the pets, has to go to the hospital. And so they decide to form an international crime syndicate so that they can raise money and plan a heist in their apartment building. In the second book, The Great Ghost Hoax, they decide to investigate an apartment upstairs that seems to be haunted. And in this book, at the beginning, all that's in the past. They've decided that probably nothing exciting like that is going to happen anymore, so it's probably time for them to retire as investigators. So that's the section that I'm going to read to you right now, is the beginning of the first, or part of the first chapter. And just to give you an idea, this is them. This is all the animals. This is Butterbean the dog, and Walt the black cat, and Oscar the mynah bird, and Marco and Polo the rats. And then they also get help from animals that don't live in their apartment, Wallace the rat, and the white cat who lives on the 5th floor. So, okay, so I will read you a little bit of the first chapter, and here we go. "You know," Oscar said thoughtfully, "since there aren't any crimes going on, I think it might be time for us to officially retire." "Retire?" Marco gasped. "You mean retire? As far as he was concerned, being an investigator was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Well, that and being part of an international crime syndicate. Not many rats had that kind of resume. "Can you even retire from being an investigator?" Polo asked. "I think we can," Oscar said. "Besides, we have lots of other things to do now. I, for one, am thinking of improving my human language skills. How does this sound?" He cleared his throat. "Quiet, Oscar." He looked around expectantly. "That was me being Mrs. Food, in case you couldn't tell." "I could tell," Butterbean said. She'd heard Mrs. Food say that a lot. Walt raised one eyebrow. "Impressive." Polo shot Marco a look. Yeah, it sounded just like her." "Like looking in a mirror," Marco piped up. "Or no, I mean, ooh, do the elevator lady voice next," Butterbean said, wagging her tail. She loved the voice in the elevator that told you what floor you were on. "It's just a little something I've been working on," Oscar said, preening. "I still need more practice." "What needs more practice?" Wallace, a wild rat who used to live in the vents, peered around the edge of the sofa to make sure it was all clear. "We're talking about retiring from the investigating business," Polo explained. "We've all got lots of other things to do. Oscar's going to work on his human language skills." "Yeah," Marco said. "And me and Polo, we're, he hesitated, looking around the cage. "Well, these seeds aren't going to sort themselves," he said, staring at the scattered seeds doubtfully. "And I'm going to be a therapist," Butterbean said. Everyone stared at her. Wallace shot a look at Polo, who shrugged. Sure, okay," Wallace said finally. "Well, I'm super busy, too. I finally moved out of apartment 5B and set up my sleeping bag behind the couch in 7C. Wallace had used one of Madison's pom-pom socks as a sleeping bag during a stakeout once, and he may have forgotten to give it back. It was one of his prized possessions. "Wait, 7C? Mrs. Powerwalker's apartment? Are you moving there for sure?" Butterbean asked. Mrs. Powerwalker was one of Butterbean's favorite residents in the Strathmore building. She was always really friendly in the elevator, pushing buttons when needed and never asking questions. The perfect neighbor. Wallace shrugged. "I'm not ready to move my collection of lost keys in or anything, but it looks promising. She leaves a bowl of milk out every night, so that's a plus. She says it's for the brownies. I think that's a kind of fairy," Wallace explained. "No, brownies are like cookies, but fatter," Butterbean said. "Like flat cake." "That's true," Butterbean agreed. "Madison eats them." Oscar closed his eyes. He decided not to say anything. "Well, I haven't seen any, so I think it's fair game," Wallace said. "I'm not turning down free milk." "Sure," Butterbean said. Free milk was free milk. See, it sounds like we won't even miss being investigators, Oscar said, clicking his beak. What with Wallace's new apartment, Marco and Polo with their seed sorting, Walt with her relaxing, Walt said. I'm planning on doing some high-quality relaxing. Right, relaxing. And Butterbean with her being a therapist, Butterbean said, nodding. Right, Oscar finished lamely. He didn't even want to ask, but somebody had to. Butterbean, about this therapist job. You can't just decide to be a therapist, Walt interrupted. Butterbean looked offended. I'm not. It's a real job. Walt sighed. Of course it is, but you're a wiener dog. Do you really think... She hadn't even finished the sentence when the front door slammed open, and Madison Park, the medium-sized girl who lived with them, rushed into the room waving a piece of paper over her head. It's all set, she said, dropping her backpack and throwing herself into the chair next to Mrs. Food. Well, hello to you too, Mrs. Food said, swallowing the last of her tuna. Butterbean looked mournfully at the empty plate. It was so unfair. Right, sorry, hello, but it's all set, see? She pushed the piece of paper toward Mrs. Food. I got the appointment for Butterbean. Mrs. Food peered down at the paper through her glasses. Well, isn't that something? Madison jumped up and hurried over to Butterbean. You're going to be great, Bean. She kissed Butterbean on the head. She's going to be perfect. Look at her. She even looks like a therapy dog. Madison rubbed Butterbean's ears and then rushed off toward her bedroom. I can't wait to email Aunt Ruby. Madison was staying with Mrs. Food while her aunt was deployed overseas. And that's the picture of Madison hugging Butterbean. Therapy dog? Oscar said slowly. It was all making sense now. I told you. I'm going to be a therapist, Butterbean said smugly. Walt raised an eyebrow. I don't think it's quite the same thing, Bean. You're just jealous because I'm going to have my own practice, Butterbean said. Ooh, are we talking about our careers? Me next, please. Everyone jumped at the voice. Marco hit his head on the bottom of the water bottle. Don't do that, Marco said, rubbing his head. Sorry, did I scare you? The white cat emerged from behind the couch and blinked at them innocently. Oops, my bad. You know you did, Polo said. And you can't just come in like that. Mrs. Food is right there. She waved her arms in the direction of the dining room table. Relax, you know I always keep out of sight, the white cat said. She lived on the 5th floor but didn't see anything wrong with using the vents to explore other apartments. So did I tell you I've come out of retirement? The white cat was the cat featured in all the beautiful buffet cat food commercials, print and television. Only 1,000,000 times, Marco grumbled softly. Sales of beautiful buffet cat food plummeted when I retired. They practically begged me to come back. I didn't have the heart to say no. The white cat curled her tail around her feet. So you've said, Oscar said politely. He'd heard the story so many times he could practically recite it word for word. Well, it's true, the white cat said. I've got a career now too, Butterbean said. I'm going to be a therapist. That's why we're all retiring from investigating, because we've got so much to do. Well, good to know, the white cat said. Of course, that's bad news for Biscuit, but I guess he'll figure things out himself. The white cat lashed her tail in the air as she turned to go back behind the couch. Wait, Biscuit? What's wrong with Biscuit? Butterbean asked, frowning. Oh, nothing important. The white cat waved a paw dismissively. Nothing that a career dog like you should worry about. But which Biscuit? Butterbean asked. There were a lot of Biscuits in the building, and Butterbean was friends with them all. 2nd floor Biscuit? 8th floor Biscuit? Biscuit with the slobber problem? Biscuit who? 2nd floor, the white cat said. But like I said, he'll probably be fine. I'm sure he'll survive somehow. She turned to leave, but Walt blocked her path. Okay, spill it. Walt's whiskers were bristling. She didn't have strong feelings about any of the Biscuits, but she didn't love the way the white cat was toying with them. What's wrong with 2nd floor Biscuit? Well, if you must know, the white cat said, her eyes gleaming, your friend is in big trouble. She made a sympathetic face at Butterbean. He's getting evicted, kicked out. By this time next week, your little friend will be out on the street. So, that's the end of the first chapter. If you want to find out what happens in the rest of the book, you'll have to check out The Great Vandal Scandal. And I hope you'll also check out the Simon Kids YouTube channel for other authors reading sections of their books that you might be interested in also. So thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the section, and have a terrific rest of the day. Bye-bye.